Powering up that parenting team again today with toddlers. It's a whole different group. We'll get specific on how to be a better parent to your toddler. We've had a lot of video comments that say, well, how do I apply this to my toddler?
Yeah.
Specific ages require some kind of specialized application of the basic principles that we've already talked about. Now, I would encourage you, if you haven't yet looked at the stages model, we've got a couple of videos here that talk about that. The first one that we put out is called Teaching Kids Responsibility. Go check that out so that you have the basic model in mind, because it's more about stage than it is about age.
Right.
But toddlers typically are at a lower stage of development, which is totally appropriate. Mm-hmm. We can't expect a 2-year-old to do what we can expect a 12-year-old to do. So for the most part, we're dealing with little people who are basically on stage 1 of their development. That means they're going to tend to be fairly self-centered, very egocentric is one of the words that we use in the industry.
They're stage 1, but a lot of the times they're willing to bridge into stage 2. You see a lot of this back and forth with toddlers.
Yes.
You know, they're cooperating and then they're not, and then they're cooperating and they're not. So
right.
Just remember that cooperation is kind of that spot. When you've got cooperation, you get to do a lot more with the child. So one of the things in understanding that is to kind of begin to understand some basic child development. And one of the things that you need to realize is their attention span. I kind of go by the rule of thumb that a kid can attend to something really focused for about as many minutes as years old they are. And so, if you've got a 2-year-old, they're really not going to stay focused for more than about 2 minutes. Now, they might stay with an activity longer, but the activity's got to change. You've got to maybe change a little bit of this, or they're going to move to this place or something. But really, attention is not very long for our toddlers.
I had a mom I was working with not too long ago say, well, I don't know if that's really true, because my 5-year-old will be on that iPad for an hour. Mm-hmm. But what you're talking about is because these digital devices are engaging to kids because there's a constant change. You look at a basic television program, for example, there's a scene change every few seconds.
Yeah, so there's a difference.
Constantly changing the stimulation and the input. So what you're talking about is being able to self-direct that attention in the absence of something, like a digital device.
So this might even look like when you're reading a book to the child, you read the words, but then you're like, oh, look over here. Do you see the mouse hiding under here? What else can you find in this picture? You've just changed it from listening to the words to exploring the book. And you ask things like, what do you think is going to happen next? Should we turn the page? You've just brought the child's attention back to the book over and over again, every little bit, every few minutes.
It's going to feel like overkill to you.
Yeah.
Because you're not a toddler. You start to think like a toddler more and start to, I call it a fresh appreciation for novelty.
Okay.
Where you're just kind of monitoring for, like a child would. You take a toddler on a walk.
And let them lead.
It's so fascinating to see what they notice. Let them teach you something about how that toddler's mind works. And then you can be a better parent to your toddler because you're approaching them at an appropriate developmental stage. Okay, Vicki, I have to say this one because unfortunately, we have people who are not doing this very well. You've got to take care of yourself.
Because your toddler will not take care of you.
I have seen tragic cases where the parent was out of commission because of an addiction or because of some problem that the parent was having, and they weren't taking adequate care of themselves. And here's this little toddler who is not developmentally mature enough to do anything to take care of anyone, including themselves, and they're in a position where they have to take care of mommy, or they have to look out for dad. Okay, that's just not fair, for one thing. But you got to take care of yourself. So whatever you need to do to accomplish that, it's huge. That is so important. We've shared before the example of when you get on an airplane and they're going through the safety routine and they talk about those oxygen masks. You know the one. And the classic line is, put your own mask on first. Because if you're out cold in the aisle, you're just in the way. You're part of the problem now. You got to take care of yourself, and then you're in a position where you can actually take care of a toddler who developmentally is in need of someone to take care of them.
Right. So part of taking care of yourself is to build the community around you. Because the interaction you have with a toddler is so different than the stimulation and the camaraderie and the friendshipping that you need.
Yeah.
You've got to build a community. And I would say one of the most great ways to be a good parent to a toddler, is to spend some time with friends who also have toddlers, because then you guys can share stories, you can share, commiserate, laugh, have fun. And another thing is laugh. I think it's really important to laugh with your toddlers and at things, and it helps you to grow and enjoy them more. But so build your community, really take care of the relationship you have. If you have a spouse or a partner, or if somebody else, whoever, there is somebody in your community, find out who it is, get really clear. It might be your mom, it might be your best friend, it might be your life partner, whoever it is, get really, really clear about that, and then build that relationship so that you have what you need with an adult so that you can give everything you can to a toddler.
They're not going to provide for your needs. But this community that you build, and thank you for including us in your community.
Right.
We're happy to be there with you. This is an example of what you get to do to build up your team. I like what you said also, Vicki, about having fun.
Yeah.
Have some fun with this. If we're not having fun, we're doing it wrong.
Right.
And you're in a more powerful and influential position as a parent when you can laugh and when you can play and when you can have some fun. In fact, play.
Yeah,
Would
that
you
brings
talk
us to a
about
really
that?
important stage, or a technique of parenting a toddler, is playing with them. You know, as a speech language pathologist, I am often surprised at how many parents I meet that don't know how to play with their children.
Right.
Get on the floor, get out the toys, make the same sounds they're making. One of the things, if you can just take a few minutes instead of directing everything, follow what your child is doing. Get on the floor and use the car the same way they are. Use the blocks and the toys. And so be willing to play with your child. You don't have to do this all day long, but get down there and play with them at least once in a while, every day a little bit.
Yeah.
But foster imagination. When you go for a walk, look really close at the bug on the grass, if that's what your child's looking at. Follow their lead and they'll teach you how to play with them. They really will.
They're really good at it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're in a world and a culture now that it has shifted a bit toward more of the electronic entertainment and stimulation. And I'm not saying that you should never use that with your children. It's actually a really beautiful tool that we have to use to enhance the learning rich environment that we can provide for our children. The risk that we run into is having an electronic babysitter where we plant them in front of the
Right.
TV or the iPad for hours on end, or that becomes the typical way that we entertain or engage our children. And Vicki, what you said is so important, not only to the child, but to the parent. This is important to your mental health and your position as a parent as well, to learn the skill of play.
Right. And we are wired to have interaction with people and words. And so when you talk with your child, talk about what you're doing. You've got a great opportunity right now to foster their language development, which will help them in so many ways. And of course, I'm going to say that as a speech therapist,
Of
but
course.
it's really true.
And it's not just the language development. I'm a psychologist, okay?
Right.
There's psychological development. There's social development.
Actually, I was going to say
creativity.
social development in play is super important.
Yes.
You know, you really want to show them how to do turn taking and how to win and lose gracefully, find win-win situations. Another thing too, I think with toddlers, and this is probably one of the hardest ones, is not to be afraid of just a little mess if the trade-off is for imagination
point.
and creativity. You know, I watch my daughter-in-law. She is the queen at this. She lets her
Yeah,
kids
she
really
really is.
explore things, you know, like with food, and she puts like they'll play. I saw her. What was it? Was it shaving cream or was it pudding that they were?
I think it was
coloring
chocolate
in?
pudding.
Chocolate pudding.
Yeah.
I mean, I, as a grandmother watching, I'm like, oh man, I probably would have been freaked out about the mess. But she lets them, and it's really a great way for them to find curiosity, to explore. Now, you can find it whatever in a way that you're comfortable with, but
don't be too attached to your comfort.
Yeah.
Be willing to stretch that a little bit. And when you mentioned our daughter-in-law, another thing that she does that I think is brilliant, and this makes you a better parent to your toddler, is that she, instead of getting upset about that, she whips out her phone and captures it.
Yeah.
Right? You think about some of the viral videos you see here on YouTube. It's kids doing kid things, but mom or dad has captured it on the phone. But then she does this, and this is so powerful. It gets back to another point that we made about build your community. Mm-hmm. She shares that video, not on Facebook or Instagram. I mean, you can do that if you want to, but we tend to keep that in our family. So she shares it with the grandparents and with the uncles and aunts. Now, what is that doing? It's building this positive, fun culture in the greater extended family, and you just created a huge service to your child. That brings us around to a great place to wrap this up, I think, Vicki, and that is be positive. Enjoy your job as a parent. There are so many rich and delightful things, and you know what? Kids don't keep. They really do grow up faster than you expect them to. And in retrospect, isn't this true for you too, Vicki?
I think it is for everybody.
You look back on it and you think, oh, those were such good times. Mm-hmm. You know what? Enjoy them while you have them.
Right.
I love teaming up with Vicki to be on your parenting team. You'll want to check out the Parenting Power Up right over here.